Good morning, people. We're going to throw a plate today. 3.5 pounds, maybe a little more. I'm working on a bat. I don't usually work on bats, but whenever I'm doing something big like this, I've got to use a bat. Plates are a challenge because you got to let them dry slow and even so they don't crack on you, and it's real easy to have them crack. I always do a thickness check when I'm doing plates. I'm about 1/2 inch, which is really what I want because I'm going to trim this. I could maybe go a little bit thinner. Clay shrinks. This clay is going to shrink. I mean, depends. If I put it in a wood kiln, it'll shrink over 15%. Okay, so I have it pulled out. I have a pretty good thickness. I'm going to take a metal rib and really compress this base. That'll help avoid cracks as well. So I have to make sure my metal rib is really angled back so I get a nice smooth surface. Now, when I'm pulling this, I'm going up at a, not quite vertical, but I always want to go higher up. If I try to go out flat, it just drops on you. You just will flatten. So you can always work the wall out. I'm trying to just get under all the rest of this weight. And I'm pretty well under it. Next, I'm just going to tool the outside. So I'm pressing from the inside out just to get all the slurry off, make it smooth and compress my wall. And then what I do is I'm going to go back and just tool this, take this flat section, the middle section out, so it's going to end up, this is pretty groggy clay, which is actually good. It's going to reduce my shrinkage. So I want a flat section, and then it's going to curve up, and then I'm going to have a little flared lip. And so now, before my metal rib was on the outside, now I flip it over, put it on the inside, and I'm going to draw this wall out. and I'm going to leave that little plane change there. And then I'm just going to sponge my lip. And last but not least, I'm going to make sure my string tool is going to hug the wheel head when I cut this off. There we go. Got a little ding in the middle, but I can fix that. So there's a nice flat plate. And it's a good size. When it shrinks, I'll measure it, but when it shrinks, I'll have a decent sized plate. I wish it was that size when it was done, right? That'd be a nice sized plate. But now, the next step. This is my little trick I'm going to show you. The problem with plates often is the outside dries first, it shrinks, and then the inside has to dry. It has no place to go, so you end up with S cracks in the middle, or some sort of crack in the middle. So the challenge is to get the pot to dry evenly. And you can just cover it and let it sit for a few days under loose plastic is a good way to do it. But here's another trick I have. I'll take a piece of newspaper, and this is the inside corner. I'm going to tear out the inside corner. Then I'm going to open it up and just rest it on there like that. So now the inside is going to get a little bit of air. The rim is covered, so it's going to dry slower. This really helps a plate or a platter dry evenly. Okay, so this is my little trick for getting plates and platters to dry evenly. It really works. I could let this sit for, I mean, if I do this at the end of the day, by the morning, it's the perfect stage to trim. It's, leather hard and ready to go. Okay, people, welcome. We're going to trim this plate. I made this plate yesterday. It had just a piece of newspaper on it, which slowed the drying for about 8 hours, and then I covered it with plastic. And so it's soft enough for me to trim. Now, the first thing I did was I checked the thickness I felt on the inside, and I can take a little bit off in the middle, but a little bit more off as I go out to the side. So I got it centered. I braced it with a few pieces of clay. I guess I'm not exactly centered, but it'll be all right. When I throw these, I'm pretty thin all the way down to here, so I don't have a lot of weight to cut off here. I'm going to decide where my foot's going to go here, so I'll probably put my foot between here and here, right about a half inch or something like that. So I'll carve down to that. Sometimes when I'll do this, if my clay is relatively hard, I'll start out carving with just the point because there's less drag. And I can just take off those little skinny strips of clay, and then I'll come back and knock down the tops of that. And so here, I'm going to define the inner edge of my foot. Let's Clay's still relatively soft, so I have to be careful I'm not going to dent in my base. You can see this clay is relatively groggy too. It's the Paoli stoneware with 7% grog, so I have to smooth that out as I finish this off. Now, the other thing I do is I usually give a little bit of a groove on the outside edge of my foot. And if I do that, it helps for a couple reasons. The first reason is when I'm glazing, it allows me to grab that and manipulate the bowl more easily with one hand. And the other reason I have the groove is in the event that someone wants to hang a platter or a plate on the wall, they can run a wire through here and put a little loop. So I have a few platters that have, you know, some cool wood-fired or decorative glaze effects. So now I'm just going to soften this with my sponge, and then I'm just going to lay my metal rib down flat, starting at the middle, working my way out. I don't want to work across the middle because then it'll catch on the clay coming towards me. But just by laying my metal rib down, it smooths that out, right? I could maybe even smooth the bottom of my foot just a touch. And then that outer section. There we go, a little wood tool. Okay, nice foot on a plate. I'm going to let this dry upside down so that my lip man, I'm really connected here, aren't I? Let this dry upside down so my lip maintains its flatness. Okay, here's a nice plate I made the other day. It's got a nice trimmed foot on there, and it's a good size plate. It's got the little plane change there, so smoothly tooled up to there, and then a flare on my lip, and I'm ready to have some lasagna, huh?
Tell you about the future while I'm showing you the past. I tell you about the worst of times, but I've saved the best for last. Save the best for